District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter, Judge Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court, Paul C. Messer and James P. Boney Jr. in Penfield Town Court. My name is Chris Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information Law, dated today, January 5th, 2023. There are 66 here. I'm going to read every single one. And if you're not watching me, if I can't reach you, that's irrelevant, because it's arriving in your offices via UPS in the next 24 to 48 hours. In all likelihood, in the next 24 hours. I'm not only sending it to you, Sheriff Baxter and District Attorney Doorley, I'm sending it to Monroe County Public Defender's Office, where I've been defended with honor, integrity, and character. And you, Todd Baxter, and you, Sandra Doorley, wouldn't know anything about honor, integrity, and character. Does a prosecutor talk in court? Sandra Doorley? How am I in jail when a prosecutor doesn't talk in court? How am I in jail 6 times? And 6 times a prosecutor doesn't talk in court. I'm going to get to the Freedom of Information Law documents where I'm demanding the names of my prosecutor's silence, and you will again refuse to disclose their names because you're corrupt. What I'm going to read, you will see tomorrow. And this is we'll receive it. It's stapled here from the UPS employee, Mark Phillips, Monroe County Public Defender. Mark, thank you for your representation of me. Regina Harper, Monroe County Public Defender. Regina, thank you for your representation of me. James P. Boney Jr., Penfield Town Court. Paul C. Messer from Penfield Town Court. You think you're in a courtroom? That little disgusting, vile room? Tell Trinity E. Ross, the United States Attorney for the Western District of New York, that you, James P. Boney Jr., and you, Paul C. Messer, think you're in a courtroom. Because there's no jury of 12. There's no witness box for witness testimony. There's no table for a prosecutor. There's no table for a defense attorney. How are you in a courtroom? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? It's a sexual harassment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. How easy is it to answer that, you skinhead stooge and buffoon? Todd Baxter, answer me, because I'm going to get to the 4L where I'm using different language, where it does not say sexual harassment in the 4L. It says employment-related discrimination lawsuits. Because sexual harassment is too limiting for your fellow psychopaths. So what's the answer, Todd Baxter, about sexual harassment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? District Attorney Sandra Doorley, what are the names of my prosecutors, you pathetic diva? And what does your conviction integrity unit do? Why do you have to have a bureaucracy within the district attorney's office, if in fact it exists, to police yourself? And who is on it? If it's a conviction integrity unit, then there are individuals on it that you appointed. So who are these individuals? Doesn't meet there's public meetings laws in a state of New York. Or it's just your ridiculous public relations vehicle, Sandra Doorley. What's the answer? How do you get into the office? Do you drive yourself just like an ordinary New Yorker, an ordinary citizen? You sit behind a wheel and drive into the office? Alex Renzi, Duke of New York, A#1 here. New York State Supreme Court, just like skinhead widow, Paul C. Messer, declaring me guilty when a prosecutor doesn't talk in court, and demanding a list of his defendants and other information from him. I don't know how old he is, but I will find out, because that should be with the Office of Court Administration, his personnel records. They should be records of him where I can find out his age. Because on a Court of Appeals, as you know, at the District Attorney's Office, for sure, there's a mandatory retirement age of 70. I don't know if that applies to New York State Supreme Court or town courts. If, in fact, the law does not force mandatory retirement 70 for New York State Supreme Court and town courts, state legislation needs to change that law. Senate Majority Leader Andrew Stewart-Cousins, Speaker Carl Heastie, Governor Kathy Hochul, they absolutely need to change that law to remove these fossils who are detached from the truth from declaring innocent citizens guilty of crimes, and that's happened to me 6 times. Trinity Ross, the United States Attorney for the Western District of New York. Everything I'm going to read went to Ms. Ross, who is a distinguished American citizen, Trinity Ross. And I have her biography here, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to click on it. Yes. I'm glad I did this right, because I'm trying to get to information as quickly as possible. That's Trinity Ross, who received every FOIL that I'm going to read here. And I'm going to tell her that I've been demanding the names of my prosecutors' silence for 18 months. Again today, again you're signing for it, and you will refuse. It's a public proceeding, you pathetic diva. So Trinity Ross is United States Attorney for Western District of New York. I'll briefly read her biography. Trinity Ross became the United States Attorney for the Western District of New York on October 11, 2021. Ms. Ross was nominated by President Joseph R. Biden Jr. on July 26, 2021, and unanimously confirmed by the Senate on September 30, 2021, becoming the first Black woman to hold a position in Western District of New York. President Biden signed Ms. Ross's commission on October 5, 2021. Ms. Ross is the top law enforcement official in the district, is responsible for overseeing the prosecution of any federal criminal case brought within the 17 counties of Western District of New York. The office also represents the United States in all civil matters within this territory. And it goes on about her distinguished biography. Now, since I am not an attorney and I could not find the information online, I believe she has regulatory power and control over you. I do not know. But she's the United States Attorney for the Western District of New York. And if there's an out of control and corrupt sheriff, which you, Todd Baxter, are an out of control and corrupt sheriff, and if this is an out of control and corrupt district attorney, and you, Sandra, Doorley, are an out of control and corrupt district attorney, and she has to have some type of power over you, and I don't know what type of power she has over you, but I'm trying to, and I did today and have previously brought you to her attention because she's going to receive every single Freedom of Information law from me. Now, Todd Baxter, buffoon, stooge, and criminal. I need to get this out of the way. That's the surveillance device. I'm trying to hold my phone so you can see it. Todd Baxter, is this private technology, 2025 Penfield Road, used for me? Or did you buy it and fix it for me? What's the answer? And are you going to tell Trinity Ross that you refused to answer? I was on it. It has an assigned number called an ICN number. I've showed the video. Regina Harper of the Public Defender's Office sent me the links. Is this private technology, Todd Baxter? Or did you buy it and fix it for me? And what's the answer, you skinhead, stooge, party switcher, and criminal? And when I'm calling a surveillance device, you fellow psychopaths are calling Lindsey Barrett of the Monroe County Office of Mental Health to come to my residence. So today, on January 5th, $90.77 for the $4 changes, $99.30 it was on the 3rd. So I'm told that psychopaths buy online like the color red. So that's why I have that red pen, and the writing on this document here that I'm going to read on this January 5th is in red. Because you're psychopaths at the sheriff's office. That's not hyperbole. You're a psychopath, Todd Baxter. You're a psychopath, Sandra Doorley. And you employ psychopaths. You, Todd Baxter, are unleashing your violent criminals and predators upon me. I've been attacked by your employee with the last name Seams at Penfield Public Library. I've been attacked with pharmacy entrance to Wegmans by a Monroe County Sheriff employee I don't know, where my head slammed down on the concrete pavement. And the witnesses are your 10 employees, your 5 vehicles, including your female employee with the Marine-style haircut and tattoos. I've said this repeatedly. I'm not going to dwell on that. So that's why you're a psychopath, Todd Baxter. You're responsible for defending, upholding, representing the law, and your employees are violently attacking me. And you, Sandra Doorley, are refusing to disclose the names of my prosecutors' silence. How am I in jail when a prosecutor doesn't talk in court? That's why you're corrupt. That's why you're a psychopath. Doesn't matter to you that I'm being delivered to jail when your prosecutor doesn't talk in court. Doesn't matter to you that I'm demanding the names of my prosecutors assigned to my court appearances who have never talked, not one syllable. So this is the FOIL that I'm going to read. And when I get to Ryan Fisher, this is Ryan Fisher in Atlanta, Georgia. When I get to your employees underwater in a pool, these are your employees underwater in a pool. Where was this photo taken? A joke? How do you explain this to Controller Thomas B. DiNapoli about how you refused to tell me the cost of Ryan Fisher's trip to Atlanta, Georgia, the cost of your employees underwater in a pool? And I'm going to try not to laugh when I get to that. Freedom of Information law. So accountability is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility to account for one's actions. You don't have to account for your actions ever. Your accountability. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man. This is the Freedom of Information law. The contract signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase firearms from Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees to include 1, the name of the firearms contractor, 2, the number of firearms purchased, 3, the total amount of taxpayer dollars expended to purchase firearms. So this is now, I think, the 5th time that I've demanded this, that you sign for it. There's corruption in contracting. Todd Baxter, you will tell State Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli in the Alfred E. Smith building in Albany, New York, that you also refuse. Do you just have the handgun contractor? Do you have long guns? Do you have rifles? Do you have any other type of weapon? What is the arsenal? And that's what it is of this Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Because your arsenal is paid for with taxpayer dollars. So what type of weapons do you have? Where did you purchase them? And how much did each weapon cost? Freedom of information on contract signed by District Attorney Sandra to purchase 1, an automobile and automobiles, 2, a driver or chauffeur for District Attorney Sandra 3, office supplies. I do not know if you're driven into work. If you have a chauffeur, if you leave your house in Webster and there's the vehicle and you're driven into work, what's the answer? This is why I call you a pathetic diva. Because you're refusing to answer. You're a diva for 10,000 reasons. So, what's the answer, you pathetic diva? Are you driven into work? Or do you get behind the wheel like an ordinary New Yorker driving there? And office supplies. I'm going to write this in a different way. There's corruption in contracting. How do you get your computers at the district attorney's office? How do you get your desks at the district attorney's office? Your pens, your pencils, your pads. Any number of things can be corruption in contracting. I'm going to write this a different way, and you will refuse to be corrupt. Paul C. Metzler, you just wanted my Chromebook. And you and $91,000 Lee LaRoque at the sheriff's office decided to take my property out of my residence, but there's no probable cause for you to, 1, be in my residence, and 2, take anything out of my residence. Where's my Chromebook, $91,000 factor, Lee LaRoque? Where is it? This is where you, Paul C. Metzler, sitting in that vile, sick room, you $28,000 bald-headed widow, and you're thinking, I want that Chris Chichester's Chromebook, so I'm going to concoct a search warrant, and then I'm going to tell Lee LaRoque of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to go into his residence and get his Chromebook. How do you explain this, Paul C. Metzler, to the United States Department of Justice, to the Office of Court Administration, to the Office of Governor Kathy Hochul, to the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary, United States House Committee on the Judiciary, any other bureaucracies and individuals I contact? There's no probable cause, there's no reason whatsoever for you, you skinhead widow, to have my Chromebook. And where is it, Lee LaRoque? Freedom of information. The documentation signed by $28,000 Paul C. Metzler, Pembroke Court, that is a quote search warrant, end quote, to allow $91,000 Lee LaRoque, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, to enter 26 Sandra on Drive in Pembroke, New York, for the compensation of the Acer Chromebook owned by Christopher Chichester. Driving while intoxicated destroys careers. If you're asked, Todd Baxter, a simple question: has a Monroe County Sheriff Office employee been arrested for driving while intoxicated? It is going to be a refusal to answer. And it's also going to be that nauseating, sick way where you talk and talk and talk and you refuse to answer the question. Do you know you're doing this? Because I believe you do. Because you're a Machiavellian calculator. That's why you're sheriff. Todd Baxter, how many employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office have been arrested for driving while intoxicated? Is the answer 0? Is the answer 1? What's the answer? Is the answer greater than 1? Freedom of information law. Number of employees, Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, arrested for driving while intoxicated. You could make that go away. I've seen this happen in Albany, which I've said previously on YouTube. I'm not going to dwell on this. And I've heard about how it can be done even in Washington, D.C., when I was a U.S. House and U.S. Senate staffer, especially in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. So, Todd Baxter, have you ever been behind the wheel when you knew you were over the legal threshold of 0.08 for driving while intoxicated? How would you answer that question? That's where you get a pass from this ridiculous media here that would never ask you that question. So I just asked you, have you ever been behind the wheel when you've had 5 drinks? What's a drink? Budweiser beer, Jack Daniels, Southern Comfort. Freedom of information law. The number of employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra, arrested for driving while intoxicated. Are you confused here? Perry Douglas, bring this to your corrupt boss and tell her I demand the answer. Cannot be an employee of District Attorney's Office, either as an attorney or a non-attorney staffer, if there's a DWI arrest. What's the answer? You refuse to answer? This foil, all 66, because you're corrupt, there's no accountability for you whatsoever in the District Attorney's Office, where I can't even find out the names of my prosecutors' silence, and is one of them Julie Hahn, who's on Monroe County Court. Freedom of Information Law. This is Alex Renzi, New York State Supreme Court, Duke of New York, A#1 here. You're forcing me in the New York State Supreme Court. I'll be in front of him again or some other hack over there at the hackocracy with his 18 of them on 99 exchange. That's just an obscenity to have that many Supreme Court judges because you're just concocting crimes and fiction for citizens, Todd Baxter. I looked at that list. I really stared at it. I was stunned. In disbelief, I'm looking at it. Is this really true? Is this 1984? There are that many? And he's the supervising judge. He's just not any other hack there. And he was at the Magistrates Association. There were pictures online of this event. I don't know if he's drunk or not. I'm using this on him because I'm trying to enrage him. That's why. I even said to him, my last appearance before him, are you an alcoholic, Alex? I don't know. I'll never know. Freedom of Information Law. The number of employees at New York State Supreme Court, 99 Exchange Boulevard, Rochester, New York, arrested for driving intoxicated. There's security when you go in there, where they check your bags, which is the way it should be. An employee that's there, checking security, who was a Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee in there, I also saw civilians there, cannot be security for New York State Supreme Court at 99 Exchange if there's a DWI in that person's background. There's any number of reasons why. An employee of the Sheriff's Office cannot be employed anywhere, but specifically cannot do security at a court. And you, Todd Baxter, shouldn't be doing security at 99 Exchange. A uniformed Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee should be doing the job, and that should be contracted out by Alex Renzi as supervising judge, and that could be private security. Sick days. Todd Baxter, you're over 50. So you've had sick days in your career. At the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, when you were in Greece, when you were at the Veterans Outreach Center. Did you ever pick up the phone when you were executive director of the Veterans Outreach Center, where I have been? We say, have helped me. And said, I can't make it in today? Well, that's not public service. That's different. If you have 30 plus sick days, something is wrong with you. Is there something wrong with you? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, Freedom of Information Law. Total number of sick days used by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter from January 1, 2022 to January 5th, 2023, which is today. You, Todd Baxter, are different than this nauseating, sickening, party-switching diva who doesn't know he's a Democrat or Republican, just like you, Todd Baxter. Because she uses her health to generate sympathy with the voters. I don't care that you're a cancer survivor. I don't care anything about your health. And this is what elected officials do, because I saw this with employees at the United States House of Representatives who were the members, employees of the United States Senate who were the members, using their health. Does not matter at all, ever. Any ailment or affliction that you have had, Sandra, Doorley, and I believe that your health and the radical decline of your health has led to a conviction integrity unit where innocent citizens are in jail and prosecutors don't talk to court because you're totally detached from what happens at your criminal sick office. Freedom of Information Law. Total number of sick days used by District Attorney Sandra Doorley from January 1, 2022 to January 5, 2023. If you have had in excess of 60 sick days and you haven't been diagnosed with anything, you cannot remain in office. You'll have to resign, Sandra Doorley. Do you have minors on the payroll at the Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney's Office? Nepotism enrages voters. And nepotism, as far as public employees, the public employee that has power cannot control himself or herself. They want either their children or the children of their friends and family members to have jobs, and they know it's so easy to put a minor on a payroll somewhere because of the power that elected official has. Are you doing that at the Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney's Office? How many minors are on the Monroe County Sheriff's Office payroll? How many minors on the District Attorney's Office payroll? How many minors are related to Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees? And how many minors are related to District Attorney's Office employees? Because there's a difference and a distinction. Tell me the answer, and you'll exist in stone cold silence of corruption. And I'm going to inform Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli in Albany to refuse to answer. Freedom of Information Law. The number of minors on the public employee payrolls of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Freedom of Information Law. The number of minors on the public employee payroll of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office that are related to Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees. Freedom of Information Law. The number of minors on the public employee payroll of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Freedom of Information Law. The number of minors on the public employee payroll of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office were related to Monroe County District Attorney's Office employees. Is Aaron Doorley on the payroll of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office? The entire time you've been in the District Attorney's Office, has Aaron Doorley received any compensation from the taxpayers of the state of New York? This is the Conviction Integrity Unit, a joke. You have to, this is your confession that innocent citizens in jail. And you don't even know that this is your confession. You know you have to do the public relations on this. Your prosecutors are not talking to court when innocent citizens in jail, and it's a disgrace. Freedom of information. The documentation signed by District Attorney Sandra Doorley created, quote, conviction integrity, end quote, within the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Does this meet? Has it ever met? Has it not met one time? And who is on it had to decide the individuals that are on it. In fact, it is legitimate, and it does meet. And then are there reports? And then what happens? What is the purpose of it? Public meetings have minutes. Not every public meeting. I don't know how the law would apply to something like this if it has met. But a meeting of, for example, the House Appropriations Committee or House Armed Service Committee in Washington, D.C., this is a transcript of everything that's said, given its monumental importance to the American people. This is monumental importance when innocent citizens are in jail. If this conviction integrity unit has met and there's no minutes, there's no record of the meeting, why? Freedom of information law. The minutes of every, quote, conviction integrity unit meeting at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Behind the badge with the MCSOs, you got a TV program, again, where I'm trying not to laugh, which I used to do on here when I ridicule and mock you. There's nothing funny about the obliteration of my life, where I'm fundamentally changed and altered as a human being, the way I look at truth and justice and decency and innocence. So I'm not going to be on here laughing in the future when I demand information from you. This I have ridiculed previously. Answer this question as far as the production. Do you understand, Todd Baxter, when you're in front of a microphone and there's a person asking you questions, that could be the producer. Or the producer could be sitting next to the person who's asking you questions. Do you understand how radio and television events function with a producer? The producer is responsible for the production of the interview, the dissemination of it, the questions asked. Freedom of information law. The cost of taxpayers for production of, quote, behind the badge with MCSO, end quote, podcast where Sheriff Todd Baxter declares his intent. What's commonly called sexual harassment lawsuits. And you're refusing. I'm demanding the cost of your out-of-state travel. You're refusing. I'm demanding how much you expended for Ryan Fisher to be in Atlanta, Georgia. You're refusing. The employees at the swimming pool. You're refusing. There's no transparency with you. You exist in secrecy because if the people of Monroe County knew the full extent of what you're doing, you cannot remain in office. You will have to resign. Freedom of information law. Does Sheriff Todd Baxter allot compensatory time to employees that have worked time beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees paid? In Albany, I don't know how it's done now, but there's a standard 40-hour work week. If an employee worked 3 weeks in a row, 50 hours, then those 10 hours accumulate 3 weeks in a row for 30 hours. And then that employee could reach 500 hours, 700 hours, and take that time and work on a campaign. There's any number of reasons, any number of ways, pardon me, where a public employee can be given time off. Compensatory was a way that I experienced. How do you do this with your own employees, Todd Baxter, when they're not necessarily paid? Do you understand what I'm talking about? If you're confused and you want to ask me what I am talking about, my phone number is 813-648-4441. And tell me how you want me to appear somewhere in some courtroom. And then when I show up before this Soviet Union show trial, one of you fellow psychopaths can violently attack me, slam me down to the ground, have my head again hit ceramic tile, just like Siemens did to me at the Penfield Public Library. Your employees, sworn officers of law with a holstered weapon and a badge, are violently attacking me over and over and over. Compensatory time for you, you pathetic diva. Bring this to your corrupt boss, Perry Duckles, and tell her I'm demanding an answer. If in fact she's not in the hospital. Freedom of Information Law. Does District Attorney Sandra allot compensatory time to employees that have worked beyond the standard 40-hour work week that is not, quote, vacation time, end quote, with the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office employee is paid? This is going to be so simple. I have not yet, even though I was looking today and yesterday, for the exact part of state or federal law for your financial disclosure. I did receive from you, Paul C. Messer, a document that's laughable, which I'm going to be on here again talking about. Paul C. Messer sent me something. That's a joke. I didn't get anything from you, Todd Baxter, you Sandra. I'm more interested in you. You $132,000 buffoon. And you $203,000 Donna Karan idiot. Send me your financial disclosures. Personal financial disclosure, Sheriff Todd Baxter. For new information on personal financial disclosure, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Personal financial disclosure of Supervising Judge, New York State Supreme Court, 7th Judicial District, that is Alex Renzi. I'm not going to read this because this is for you, Paul C. Messer, and you don't got anything on there. Freedom of information on the personal financial disclosure of Penfield Town Court Judge James Mully Jr. Metro sent it to me, but Mully didn't. Why is that, James Mully Jr.? Think about Jermaine Benman and Jessica Wagner. Is Jessica Wagner still employed at the District Attorney's Office, Sandra Doorley? Because I don't think she is. Do you know what I'm talking about? Jessica Wagner, Jermaine Benman, James Mully Jr., he violently attacks me. I'm in jail being charged with harassment, sitting in the backseat of Andrew Reality's Monroe County Sheriff Office employee. This violent dog, Jermaine Benman, whose fist landed on my jaw, walked right out of Penfield Town Court because of Jessica Wagner. Was she disciplined? Freedom of Information Law. This is discipline for the Sheriff's Office. The internal disciplinary records of documentation of employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's reprimand, term, and discipline employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. As you're a veteran, Todd Baxter, and I don't know the extent of your service, if you were at a permanent station like I was at Fort Campbell and 101st Airborne Division, or you've been in the Reserves and National Guard, but immediately you are introduced to UCMJ and in particular the Article 15, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are soldiers, and I was one of them, in fear of the Article 15. The soldiers who talk about Article 15. So I remember my roommate Anthony O'Neill, and he worked in S2 or intelligence. He came back to the barracks one night, and he was telling me about someone he knew that got an Article 15, what happened to him. And I'm listening to this in total fear. Like, I cannot have it happen. I never want to have an Article 15. I always have to be squared away, as they say in the military. And there are millions of soldiers like this. I'm nothing special. And I have nothing but contempt for individuals who think they deserve praise because they wore the uniform and served the country when there's tens of millions of men and women just like that. So, Todd Baxter, what's the disciplinary process at the Sheriff's Office? Is it non-existent, Todd Baxter? The internal disciplinary records of documentation for employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, reprimand, term, and discipline employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Your employee, Brandon Cadiz, committed a robbery. Was he a disciplinary problem before he got to the point of a robbery? Todd Thurston, do you know the answer to that question? Did you know Brandon Cadiz? I don't know. It's where there's no accountability for you. Accountability is an obligation and willingness to accept responsibility to account for one's actions. This is it right here. This is accountability. Accountability is a joke to you. Sheriff's Office, just like the District Attorney's Office. Freedom of Information Law, the internal disciplinary records of documentation of employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley, that District Attorney Sandra Doorley is reprimanded, terminated, or disciplined employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. You should fire an employee that does not talk in court. An assistant district attorney as a defendant is delivered to jail. The way it works in courts, you pathetic diva, is that prosecutors talk in court, make an argument against the accused. That's the way it works. A prosecutor's never talked in court for me, as I've been delivered to jail 6 times. With fanatics and psychopaths, sociopaths. You should fire immediately every single assistant district attorney who doesn't talk to court as a defendant is delivered to jail. Simple as it gets, salaries. I'm going to write this 6-month period since January 2018 when you first took office so I can see how you've delivered raises the entire time you're in office. And this is what I'm going to encourage and ask in the most respectful way of the Troll Thomas P. DiNapoli in Albany. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Freedom of Information Law. List of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office by one length of employment, years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. What's not to understand? Length of employment leads to corruption. You have an employee at the jail, as I've said previously, who I believe has been there for 40 years, and he's the old boy network. And I think he could be either at 70 or even past 70. I think you even know what I'm talking about. Now, the district attorney, I have received this next form that I'm going to read, and it's attached, but I got it, and I didn't look at it yet. I didn't even look at the salaries. I looked at it briefly, I saw it, and you complied with this. These next two, you pathetic diva finally complied with the law. Congratulations at the district attorney's office. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Freedom of Information Law. I have it. I've not looked at it yet. Freedom of Information Law. List of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's office by length of employment, years, the day, month, and year the employee is hired. I have it. You complied. It's a miracle. I have to alert the Vatican that I wrote a Freedom of Information Law where you're supposed to honor the law and provide me with the information, and you did. I didn't receive this, though. This get removed from office. This is so easily understood by the citizens of Monroe County. Overtime, time and a half, all your employees at the district attorney's office, sheriff's office, abusing overtime. Freedom of Information Law. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, all paid on base house calculated at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office of Sheriff Todd Baxter. Do you, Todd Baxter, receive overtime in addition to your $132,599 salary? That could remove you from office. Either by when I say remove you from office, any number of things can happen. You could decide you have to resign because you know that you cannot withstand the attention from the media, United States Department of Justice, and others. Or you could be forced from office by the state legislature. You could be removed from office by the state legislature. From what I read in the New York State Constitution, there's a provision in the New York State Constitution to remove sheriff. And I looked at that about 6 months ago, and I'm trying to do this from memory. I did not look that up before I got online. I have to look that up again because I always strive for accuracy. But that's in the state constitution as far as my memory going back 6 months. Any number of ways you can be removed from office, Todd Baxter. If you're abusing overtime, that's a way. District Attorney Sandra Doorley, your $203,089 salary, which should be reduced by $203,089. Do you receive overtime in addition to that six-figure compensation or not? Is it just your salary set in statute and that's it? Freedom of Information. Total cost of overtime, time and a half for paid on a base house calculated at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Do you have employees at the District Attorney's Office that have paid more money than you at $203,089 with overtime? What's the answer? You're not going to answer anything because there's no accountability for you, which is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or account for one's actions. You never account for your actions, you pathetic diva. You have a 40-hour work week in Webster, Sandra Doorley? Or is your 40-hour work week in Rochester, 47 South fits you? What's the answer? Freedom of Information Law. Total number of sick days, the total number of hours employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter, accumulated by one, the number of sick days, the number of hours. Given the size of your monstrously corrupt Monroe County Sheriff's Office, this needs to be monitored. You need to have an employee who is the one who receives sick day information. How many employees? If they have a list and you have 50 employees on it, and someone has called in sick for the calendar year 2022, 60 plus times, and has not been diagnosed with any serious illness, something's wrong with that employee. That employee's fleecing taxpayers. You should have, I'm going to say this again in a clear way, a concise way. You, Todd Baxter, need to have a Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee that you detail to account for every single sick day of a Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee. Then you, Todd Baxter, need to be provided with the list of the employees that have the most sick days. Freedom of Information Law. Total number of sick days, the total number of hours employees the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley have one accumulated by the number of sick days, the number of hours. You know who will be number one on this list? You, Sandra Doorley. I believe, and I could be wrong, but comply. Perry Duckles, how many times you picked up the phone and it was a sick day for you? Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 30? There's no accountability here for Duke of New York, number one. He's going to look at this and do the full, do you know who I am? Because he'll refuse to comply. He does whatever he wants. Mr. 24%. A joke that he's in there with 24%. Freedom of Information Law. Total number of sick days, the total number of hours that supervising Judge Alex Renzi, 7th Judicial District, New York State Supreme Court, have accumulated by the number of sick days, the number of hours. He's an elitist, so he'll refuse. And I believe that he will be angered, even in a rage, looking at this. Because judges think there's no accountability for them. And their decisions, even when they violate the civil and constitution of civil rights of innocent citizens, should never be questioned. This revolting little room that should be shut down. This is how you shut down Pemberton Town Court, Sandra Doorley. Redirect defense to other jurisdictions. It's that simple. You let Paul C. Metzer a $28,000 salary and James William Jr. $34,000 salary sit there alone with no defense. That's how you shut down this room, and that's how you prevent innocent citizens in Monroe County Jail. Freedom of information law. Total number of sick days, the total number of hours employees in Pemberton Town Court have accumulated by one, the number of sick days, the number of hours. What's the answer, Paul C. Metzer? What's the answer, James William Jr.? Do whatever you want in that room without a jury, without a witness box for testimony, without a table for a defendant, defense attorney, without a table for a prosecutor. You think you're in a courtroom? Freedom of information law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter expended taxpayer dollars set on employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII Civil Rights Act 1964. Kathleen Miller, have you ever been sexually harassed in Monroe County Sheriff's Office? What's the answer? Do you understand the definition of sexual harassment? Freedom of information law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars set on employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Michelle Crowley, Director of Grand Jury, did been sexually harassed in Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Do you understand the definition of sexual harassment? This is the complaints. I'm going to go to the 4th Judicial Department, which is on East Avenue. My complaint will be 1,000 pages, and my complaint is going to be, here I am, on this January 5th, reading this. You're going to refuse to comply with every single one. That'll be part of my complaint. I'll send my complaint with the transcript of this YouTube, which is accountability. I'll say, I can't even get basic information using the legally binding document that is the Freedom of Information Law. The number of complaints written or filed by defendants about attorneys, employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of District Attorney Sandra Doorley with the 4th Judicial Department Attorney Grievance Committee. Do you even know, you pathetic diva, that this exists? The Attorney Grievance Committee. Do you, Perry Duckles? Freedom of Information Law. What is the basic membership requirement for employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Sheriff Todd Baxter. This is the clarification. It is so simple. How often do your employees qualify? It should be quarterly. I'm going to go into more detail. I could write possibly 1,000 words on this. You, Todd Baxter, from being a veteran, have qualified with the M16. Because even though it's a new weapon, and being an E8, you have used the M16. The first thing you do in the first 2 weeks, one of the first things, you do in the first 2 weeks is learn how to fire the M16. Your employees have that holstered weapon. It should be quarterly because they need to be forced to have that weapon in the hand and be comfortable with it. So an innocent citizen is not shot and killed by a Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee. This is your $0 freak. How is this defended? Is he paid private money to work at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? 1. 2, is he paid private money that's campaign contributions to you, Todd Baxter, from your accounts of 2017 and 2021? What's the answer? He's been with you since day one, January 1, 2018, because that was on documentation that came back to me when I was using this. What I'm demanding here, though, is your signature for him. Your signature for him, Michael Rouse, your confession. You want this $0 freak around you. You want a $0 freak around you because you, Sheriff Baxter, are a freak. Freedom of Information Law. The day in your Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter rehired Michael Rather after his 20-year career ended on January 1, 2018 and sent to the email address listed below the documentation signed by Sheriff Baxter to rehire Rather. So this is where you exist in that corruption and fanaticism where I know he's hired. He's been there since January 2018. But it also says, I want to see your signature for hiring him. This is what I'm going to say to Thomas P. DiNapoli. If you're refusing, your signature on a document to rehire the Ragler is your confession, and you're perfectly comfortable with him being a $0 employee because you know that he can't be a double dipper because that's a monumental public relations nightmare for you. And I do believe you have double dippers, but I could be incorrect. I don't have the arrogance. I'm right about everything. Todd Baxter, you have double dippers. You even know what I'm talking about. Double dippers, a state or federal employee who retired, has a retirement paycheck, is hired at a new state or federal job and gets a second paycheck. Do you have double dippers at the sheriff's office? I'm going to be in contact with you about that question. Freedom of Information Law. This is the lunatic fringe. I'm not going to talk about this because this is insanity. You bought that camera for me. I've seen the images. Regina Harper sent them to me, and you're refusing to tell me if this is private technology. at 2025 Penfield Road if you bought it and fixed it for me? What's the answer? You buffoon, stooge, skinhead. Todd K. Baxter doesn't know if he's a Democrat or Republican. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of a surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Army Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and fixed to a building in 2025 Penfield Road to monitor Christopher Johnson, 26 Sandra Farm Drive, walks through the parking lot to the building, and that's the lunatic fringe. This is your photography session here. These are your employees underwater in a pool. A disgrace. Is it taxpayer dollars or not? The cost for a photography session to photograph 10 Monroe County Sheriff Office employees underwater in a pool approved by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. What's the answer? This is Ryan Fisher in Atlanta, Georgia here. Here he is. Were you tweeting about it? That's your employee, Ryan. It's a little dark here, but that's the Mercedes-Benz logo. Here is a better picture. It's not a high-quality picture, but that's him. That's him in Atlanta, where this was the flag until 2003. This hate symbol. The two states in the United States of America that are polar opposites of New York, for me, are Georgia and Alabama. And there is your employee in Georgia. Freedom of Information Law. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to attend the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. I've demanded this like 50 times easy. And then I started to write it in a different way, to be more specific. This is about the 10th time I've demanded this, where I decided he's not going to comply, so I'm going to change it. I'm going to write the language in a different way. So when I go to Thomas B. DiNapoli, I'll say, I was just writing general language, you refused it. Then I got as specific as I could, and he still refused. Freedom of Information Law. Documentation of voucher or other documentation signed by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to purchase an airline ticket and a hotel room for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to travel to Atlanta, Georgia for the Super Bowl on February 3rd, 2019. Freedom of Information. The cost for care and feeding of Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher's German Shepherd Lola during his trip to Atlanta, Georgia on February 3rd, 2019. That means he took a plane from Rochester, and he's on the plane, and his dog Lola is next to him. Instead of being outside, policing the streets of Rochester, New York, policing the roads of Monroe County, your employee Ryan Fisher is on an airplane with his German Shepherd sitting next to him. How do you think you're going to remain in office? When I start going to the Democrat and Chronicle and radio and television and others about you, you are absolutely corrupt to your core, and you do not know you're absolutely corrupt to your core. And this is why right here. Your buffoons and stooges and psychopaths are 20 pounds overweight, 30 pounds overweight, 40 pounds overweight. Easy. Because you don't demand physical fitness. Why? Because you know that you're going to be the recipient of anger from your own employees who don't want to be in shape. Freedom of Information Law. What are the physical training standards and requirements of Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? And if there is a standard requirement, does it include one running, push-ups, sit-ups? It is so easy to run 2 miles in 24 minutes. It is so easy to do 30 push-ups. It is so easy to do 30 sit-ups. And your employees cannot achieve any of that. 2 miles in 24 minutes, 30 sit-ups, 30 push-ups. Your female employee, when I was at Monroe County Jail the last time, and I was looking up at her at the catwalk, if that's what it's called, 40 pounds overweight. This is what I was thinking about her. I was thinking about her, yet another overweight Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee. This female employee I was looking at, there's no way she could do 40 push-ups, 40 sit-ups, and run 2 miles in 24 minutes. And you're perfectly comfortable with that. That's acceptable to you, Todd Baxter, because you're corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. This is violence at Monroe County Jail. You cannot remain in office if there are repeated criminal acts at Monroe County Jail. You cannot remain in office if there are violent criminal acts at Monroe County Jail and you're not reporting those violent criminal acts to the district attorney's office or other authority. Is that the case? I'm going to write this in a different way. I could possibly have 1,000 words on this when I contact the United States Department of Justice about violence at Monroe County Jail, and I've been attacked at Monroe County Jail by your employee. And I've seen violent crimes at Monroe County Jail where the inmates are attacking each other. So there could be employee on inmate violence. It could be inmate on inmate violence. It could be inmate on employee violence. What's the state of violence at Monroe County Jail? Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Freedom of Information Law. The number of criminal acts or criminal actions where an inmate appeared in court for a criminal charge with a criminal act or charge occurred at Monroe County Jail from January 22 to January 5th, 2023, which is today. Existing in stone cold silence of corruption, Todd Baxter. Arresting officer and arresting officer is accountable for arrest. So when I'm violently attacked at Penfield Public Library Siemens, there's an arresting officer. When I'm violently attacked at Pharmacy Entrance to Wegmans, there's an arresting officer. Call your female employee with the Marine-style haircut, the crew cut, and tattoos into your office, Todd Baxter, and ask her about how she witnessed this violent attack upon me at Wegmans, where your employee got out of his vehicle. He knows it's me. He's thinking he read the payroll in all likelihood. He's been on YouTube slamming us, and he ran at me, knocked me down. My head crashed against the concrete pavement outside the pharmacy entrance because of your animal, Todd Baxter. What's his name? And the blue wall of silence will compel your female employee who witnessed this to not say one word. Freedom of Information Law. Does Sheriff Todd K. Baxter assign an arresting officer to every arrest for the accountability of facts and circumstances of the arrest? The answer is no. Name and charge. Send it to me. Freedom of Information Law. The name and charge of every even of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's Monroe County Jail from January 2018 to January 5th, 2023. Separate your nonviolent inmates from your violent inmates. I'm walking around there with the murderers, the rapists, the arsonists. I've said this 50 times, 100 times. You don't even understand the common sense way how to run a jail because you're a buffoon and stooge. Freedom of Information Law. Do you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, hire employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office based on race or gender? It is so simple to answer. You're a Democrat. Democrats are obsessed with race and gender. That's just the way it is. It's been that way for 40 years. Is it yes or is it no? Same thing with you pathetic diva. Freedom of Information Law. Do you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, hire employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office based on race or gender? Do you, Sandra Doorley, read, it's one thing to listen to it, read the speech by Martin Luther King in 1963, the March on Washington speech, because it is epic. He's talking about a colorblind society, a colorblind United States of America. Is Monroe County District Attorney's Office colorblind? That's what I'm attempting to find out. Is Monroe County Sheriff's Office colorblind? That's what I'm attempting to find out. What matters is the content of your character, not the color of your skin. Freedom of Information Law. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester where John P. Lenzer Jr. in Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? For about the 10th time. Is this Julie Hahn, who's now in Monroe County Court? I'll contact her directly and ask her. And if she says, I don't know what you're talking about, and that's not me, then that's the answer. What's the answer? Is this Julie Hahn or is this not Julie Hahn? Stone cold silence. Whoever that was, whatever that female employee is, watched me as I was driven down to my knees on Penfield Town Court and the handcuffs went on. I was driven to Monroe County Jail where I was there for 3 weeks. And where did I go after that? Because I'm going to talk about that. Because you, Todd Baxter, gave my health care records to Paul C. Metzler on Penfield Town Court, and you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, violated the 1996 law passed by my former employers, the United States Senate, United States House of Representatives, that is the Health Insurance Privacy Protection Act of 1996, because there's Paul C. Metzler with my health care records in her hands, because you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, gave them to her. Freedom of Information Law. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester for Paul C. Metzler, Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? This is the 5'2" three-piece suit boy that Regina Harper, the Monroe County Public Defender's Office, said to me, quote, the prosecutor's not backing down. The vengeance of the heart of him is sickening. Why don't you just call me to the office and he could have interviewed me? Do you call defendants to your office for interviews so you can understand facts and circumstances and what they have to say? The answer is no, you never do that. You're just relying on a concocted piece of paper to convict someone. Nobody should ever be convicted on paper like me. And that's happened to me 6 times. Freedom of Information Law. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester, New York State Supreme Court for Alex R. Renzi. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? My last appearance where I was told I was finished and done, which is not true. So I'll be back in New York State Supreme Court before this hack, supervising judge, Duke of New York, A#1, Alex Renzi, somebody else you want to compel me to appear in front of him so you can just declare me guilty and send me to jail when your prosecutor doesn't have to talk in court. So when I'm in jail for the 7th time, I'll be back on YouTube and I'll say, I told you so. List of defendants in Penfield Town Court for Paul C. Metzler from January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2022. This is the last 2 years, 2 full calendar years, Freedom of Information Law, 2021, 2022. I did not look at that envelope. If it's in there, it's in there. So perhaps you sent it to me, and I'm just demanding this again. List of defendants in Penfield Town Court for James P. Jr. from January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2022. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, James P. Jr.? The last 2 years, send it to me. Because that envelope is so thin, that it's not going to have every defendant in there because it's just assembly line of guilt in that nauseating little room. List of defendants of Penn Court for John P. Lorenzo Jr. from January 1, 2015 to December 31, 2019. This is different. Last 5 years, send it to me because I want to contact these individuals and my neighbor's name would be on it. You don't have any records of Penn Court. When I write something like this, I already know the answer. There's no record of your defense of Penn Court. Freedom of information law. List of defendants in the New York State Supreme Court for supervising Judge Alex Renzi from January 21 to December 31, 2022. This is a real courtroom. And how does this Emory University Law School graduate in Atlanta, Georgia, where he has to go 1,000+ miles away to get his JD? I mean, he's Albany Law School in Albany. I said that to him when I was in the New York State Supreme Court. You had to go to Atlanta, Georgia to get your JD? Because I'm trying to enrage him in there. And when he's up there staring down at me, I'm reasonably confident that he is in a rage. When I said to him, you had to go to Atlanta to get your degree. Because if you're going to be a New Yorker, stay in New York. Who doesn't love New York? Freedom of information law. The quote, defective documents, end quote, cited by John P. Lorenzo Jr. in the Democrat Chronicle newspaper about the case of Daniel last third. Send it to me. Travel, this can be removed from office. Freedom of information law. The cost taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd Baxter. That includes Watkins Glen. The cost, freedom of information law. The cost taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra. That includes the District Attorneys Association, the State of New York Summer Conference. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County, New York State by employees of Penn Court, Paul C. Metzer, James P. Jr., John P. Lorenzo Jr. This is Watkins Glen, freedom of information. The cost of the trip to Watkins Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd Baxter. Did the Monroe County Sheriff's Office spend tax dollars for a hotel, plane ticket per diem? I'm going to go into more detail about this. How many of your groupies, your Kool-Aid drinkers, your flunkies did you take with you? Freedom of information. The total number of employees that escorted Sheriff Todd Baxter on his trip to Watkins Glen, New York. Freedom of information law. The cost of taxpayers with District Attorney Sandra Doorley attended in Saratoga Springs, New York, the District Attorneys Association, State of New York Summer Conference. And the final foil. The cost of taxpayers Saratoga Springs, if Sheriff Todd Baxter approved the expenditure of tax dollars, attend the Undersheriff's Training Conference at the Gideon Putnam Motel in Saratoga Springs, New York. What's the answer? Your employees are going to Saratoga, perhaps the most beautiful county in all of New York. I'll use my favorite word. That's a disgrace. So you got everything. That dated on this January 5th, right here. What I just read, I'm going to say this again and repeat myself. Corruption requires repetition. Went to Mark Phillips. Thank you, Mark, for the representation of me. And I believe you will see me again when I'm in handcuffs because of what I'm doing to these psychopaths right now. Regina Harper. Thank you, Regina, for your representation of me. I'm always grateful, especially when you came to Livingston County Jail and won my freedom and won my release. James P. Jr., Paul C. Metzler, Todd K. Baxter, Sandra Doorley, Alex Renzi, and the most important name, Trinity Ross got this. Because when I get to the point where I contact her, she'll look at this, and I think that she'll be in confusion, like, who is this citizen? Why is he sending it to me? And then when I contact her, and I'll send you the transcript of what I'm doing here on this YouTube, I'll say I'm demanding information from her. But this is the United States Attorney for Western District of New York. I believe she should be able to make decisions and understand what I'm sending her. And she should be able to understand it's corruption. Like, I'd like to know what Trinity Ross thinks when she sees the pictures of Ryan Fisher that I sent her. I'd like to know what Trinity Ross thinks when she sees your employees underwater in a pool. I'd like to know what Trinity Ross thinks when you have a conviction integrity unit. All she has to do is Google Sandra Doorley conviction integrity unit. And perhaps she'll be thinking, what is going on there in Monroe County with the district attorney? I don't know. So, again, today, Patrick's printing. These are all the receipts for the printing over and over and over. I'm spending hundreds of dollars on printing. And it's worth every penny. And a lot of that I also sent you, registered mail return receipt. There are different ways to send information. And this is, I've read all these, but this is stacked. This registered mail return receipt. I think 85% of what I read were just in these for registered mail return receipt. So, comply with the law, and you will refuse because there's no accountability. Accountability is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or account for one's actions. There's no responsibility with you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, and you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, because you're corrupt.